I like to report on news as quickly as I can, and I did so with both my videos in this case, but specifically with this story, I should have absolutely waited on a response by SuperMega and made one big video about it rather than separating both stories, and I am very sorry to everybody involved for making that mistake.
I didn't think that I would be making a follow-up video about the SuperMega controversy so soon, but surprisingly, a day after I posted my video about my thoughts on the situation, Ryan from SuperMega tweeted out an additional response where he demanded an unambiguous apology from everyone involved regarding the mentions of he and Matt's deceased friend and all of the character assassinations made in reference to it. And that's fair and remarkably reasonable given everything said. Before we move on though, understand that when allegations of any kind, of any caliber, are brought to the internet by anyone, we should fully expect for the accused to come hard as fuck against the accuser. That's their right and their prerogative. But in response to Ryan, Nick of Nickisnotgreen or Greenisnotnick created a video addressing some of the criticisms he's been receiving for his coverage on this situation. And unsurprisingly, it was not very well received for multiple reasons, starting with the fact that for many, his apology regarding the mentions of Matt and Ryan's friend seemed to be hollow because it was surrounded by insults towards the guys and their channel.
I will say I believe there is a difference between exploiting someone's suicide and including it as a part of someone's experience when making a video about the story. I'm sorry that I talked about Daniel in the video. I think it would have been worse for me to ignore it altogether, but I should have condemned it when it originally came up in Lex and Layden's story. Based off their reaction and the way that they turned the narrative on their friend who was assaulted in Matt's house, I fully believe that Matt and Ryan support the conspiracy that Lex's video is nothing but a hit piece on them to ruin their career. Another claim being made about me is that I made my video about SuperMega for clout and attention. If you look at my channel, especially right before I made my videos on SuperMega, you'll see that I don't need or want clout or attention from them. My TikTok drama audience does not overlap with a dying Let's Play channel.
Content creators have a tendency to ignore all constructive criticisms in favor of addressing only the stupid and the nastiest comments obviously made from people just trying to defend their faves, and that's precisely what Nick did here in a lot of ways. Nick addressed Ryan's direct call out of him for not apologizing for bringing up their friend during his coverage, but Nick seems to have framed this as either Ryan or SuperMega supporters believe that he was using this as a way to capitalize.
In his statement, he directly mentions me and tags my social media, claiming that I was exploiting Daniel's suicide by including what Layden and Lex said in my video.
Now, I have seen some pretty wild comments from people within SuperMega's fan base, so I really wouldn't put it past someone to suggest something like that, but SuperMega also does have a pretty large following, and I know some of them have been receptive to my particular coverage. Though I don't condemn SuperMega to being horrible people, I do recognize where they could have done better without barring them from growth. But I also had a more understanding slant towards Lex, even though I would also probably characterize her as a bit entitled and a little overzealous. The overall point of my original video was to try to get people to perceive Matt, Ryan, and Lex as people who are imperfect but still worthy of respect, even if they all had missteps. And most importantly, helping people understand that an alleged victim should not have to be perfect in every single way in order for you to extend some level of understanding, or at least just common courtesy. Some people didn't like that because they perceive her to be a liar, but overall, the comment section does have a good amount of self-proclaimed SuperMega fans who were receptive to my perspective, so I know they ain't all unreasonable. And unless you guys can show me where, I don't believe Ryan ever said Nick's capitalizing off of the suicide in particular. If anything, I would say that he and Matt were more deeply affected by not only the mention of their friend's death, but the happening and their subsequent grieving process being used as a way to paint them as bad people. And to some extent, I think that that's worse, because it means that those making the accusations, including Lex, Layton, and Morgan, have no boundaries and see everything as fair game while expecting sympathy to be extended to them. There's a level of acknowledging and understanding the optics of what you're saying and how you're saying it that wasn't fully met here. And I do believe Nick fully acknowledged that he should have condemned the use of Ryan and Matt's alleged comments on their friend's death as discussed in Lex's video during his initial coverage.
Daniel's suicide should not have been a part of the story told by Lex and Layden.
But I also believe that he hides behind the sentiment of supporting the victim to a very large extent. When Nick speaks on Lex's alleged sexual assault, he constantly refers to Don, the accused, as a sex offender without the use of the word alleged.
There is also evidence that Don asked people publicly about housing in Los Angeles, and that SuperMega fans offered places for Don to stay, under the impression that he was still on good terms with SuperMega, and definitely under the impression that he was not a sex offender.
This is something that has been noted in most coverage on Nick, and rightfully so, because it is grating. When you call someone a sexual assaulter, or a rapist, or a sex offender, without the term alleged in front of it, you are signaling to your audience that this person is 100% that thing. If you are American or Canadian, or if your country's legal system mirrors ours in any way, you are also signaling that the accused has undergone due process and has been prosecuted in some way in a formal legal sense. People like Nick often drop the word alleged because they believe that this is the best way to show unwavering support towards the victim, and that is untrue. What it actually does is spread misinformation and opens you up to willfully defaming someone, which can result in a lack of trust from your audience. And in some ways, it can be argued that if a person reporting these claims is untrustworthy, that can lead to distrust of the alleged victim themselves, especially if the victim happened to reach out to the creator for support, like Lex apparently did with Nick.
Lex posted her story, and I was asked by her and Ethan to potentially talk about it on my channel because I've talked about similar situations in the past.
The victim, the survivor telling the story, is the only person who can drop the term alleged without scrutiny because they are speaking from their own personal experience. As outsiders, we may drop the alleged in personal conversations, but online, in public, in front of people, it's a nah. And it's so important. It protects your integrity as the one reporting on the situation, and it also shows that while you can be steadfast in pushing back against the very accepted culture of impulsively disbelieving survivors, you simultaneously respect the tenet of innocent until proven guilty, thereby discouraging witch hunts. You can do both at the same time. But let's wrap back around to the capitalizing thing. And I'm gonna bypass the capitalizing on suicide accusation because I do believe that is boiling things down a bit too much. A genuine criticism that I was reluctant to push onto Nick in my original video is gaining social capital from covering survivors' testimonies. I see a lot of people saying that he did this for money, but I would have to disagree. Nick probably makes an ungodly amount of money from his content. I'm actually going to steer away from his channel with this next point because I don't really want to demoralize channels that I'm not heavily familiar with. But for progressive or left-leaning video essayists or commentators, there is much more to be gained from covering a situation like this than just money. Social capital is how they maintain skin in the game. Creating safe spaces, checking all people's boxes for what a good person is. These are all ways to ensure your audience sticks around even when you fumble. Both a benefit and a downfall for creators making content creation into a career is that they have to become more strategic. They learn what topics they should talk about, which ones they shouldn't, and determine which ones are worth an investment. After this video was released by Nick, I am wondering if that was a lot more accurate to him than what I originally thought. He states that he wanted to support Lex, states that he was not monetarily capitalizing because both videos were demonetized.
I didn't make any money reporting on this story, and my only objective for posting about it was to talk about a story that I felt was important.
States that the videos were not there to help his career, but he also says that he tries to be the first person to report on such events.
If you know my channel, especially at that time, I was posting constantly and I was always trying to be the quickest one to get to a story.
My question is, why? Why do you do that? Would it be because you want your video to pop up first in the search engine? Because you want to be a point of reference for the situation, which can help steer a certain narrative, a certain perspective? Could it be because he wanted to show his audience how hard and how far he was willing to go for an alleged victim? I truly wish that he provided an answer as to why he wanted to be the first person to cover this. Now, we all have speculations and answers in our heads, and many of them are probably not going to pan paint him in a very positive light. According to Nick himself, it is a bad faith argument to come to a conclusion without hearing from the primary source themselves.
You cannot watch a video from another creator, or even from Matt and Ryan claiming that I am a liar, without even watching the content that I made in the first place. That is the definition of attacking someone in bad faith.
And yet, he published a reactionary video about SuperMega prior to their responses. And I'll give him credit where credit is due because he did speak to this.
Specifically with this story, I should have absolutely waited on a response by SuperMega and made one big video about it rather than separating both stories. And I am very sorry to everybody involved for making that mistake. I definitely need to take a look at my content and look at the way that I can impact other people as a result of telling my stories.
But when we think a little deeper, this must be something that he has always believed as a seasoned, affluent content creator. He knows first-handedly what it feels like for people to come to a conclusion about you based on someone else's opinion. So why did he allow himself to fall into that very same pattern? Destiny's theory is that it's because he's a bully, but he bullies people who many would consider to be bad, so it's okay.
I don't like this new like this new iteration of, I don't want to call them cry bullies, I guess woke scolding, like the woke scolding bullies. Like when I look at people like Nick, the archetype of Nick as a person is he is a bully. And a lot of these people are bullies, but because they have like the woke demeanor, they somehow like skirt by that. But yeah, they very much
just like it's bullying, but it's for the right reason.
Exactly. They enjoy watching other people go down. They enjoy like with people's careers. They like the gossip.
Kind of similar to the logic around iDubbbz's content cop videos.
As you can probably tell, I can hardly contain myself right now, because today is the day we get to bully Leafy.
My theory, however, is that like most people, standards that Nick has for other people are true for them, but not for him. But he tends to skate by this contradiction because his audience believes him to be generally a good person trying to do the right thing. Hence, a reliance on social capital. Nick also takes the stance in this video that if you do not agree with him on the following, then perhaps you should not consume his content.
Matt Watson and Ryan McGee put their audience at risk and lied to the people who watched them because they knew it would negatively affect their image. If you do not agree with me on that, then I do not think that you should watch or consume my content.
And that is just a wild thing to say. Maybe for Nick, someone who is actually friends with Lex and has interacted with the other players involved here, maybe that makes sense to him to come to that sort of conclusion. But for us, the outsiders, the watchers, most people don't even seem to have a firm yay or nay when it comes to this entire event. Because then let's talk about it. Let's talk about what actions Matt and Ryan should have taken regarding Dawn. The whole accusation of covering up Lex's alleged sexual assault centers around their lack of immediate transparency to their fans, right?
I've seen creators who have firsthand experienced the backlash of telling a story as a victim online who are now backing up SuperMega as if they both didn't fully admit to covering up their friend and employee sexually assaulting another one of their friends. There is verifiable proof that after SuperMega finally let Don go, they didn't tell their fans the reasoning for firing him after weeks of questions about his disappearance from the channel.
So what should they have done? Posted to hundreds of thousands of people about Don allegedly sexually assaulting Lex without evidence? Or should they have just vaguely said, hey guys, we believe Don hurt one of our friends, so please don't allow him to stay with you? That sounds reasonable when you're looking at it in hindsight, but look at what has ensued from this current controversy. Do you guys really think if they made a posting like that it would have blown over very well? SuperMega fans would have rightfully asked more questions, and some probably would have done some digging and some investigating. Both SuperMega and Dawn would have been endlessly pressured to speak on this issue further had it been posted like that. And this would have probably led to the eventual outing of Lex as the alleged victim, who at the time, a year ago, did not seek to be part of a public announcement. I think the right answer is hard to find here, and I really hate the framing that this would have been an easy thing to approach, because any step that anyone would have made would have played out negatively in some form or fashion. To suggest that showing care towards the alleged victim and audience members while protecting the integrity of their business and themselves would have been easy is a flagrant disregard to the nuance that surrounds sexual assault allegations, especially the ones that are levied online. I don't believe pushing your audience into an ultimatum of sorts by grandstanding is the way to go here. I would have liked for Nick to expand on what he thought SuperMega's best alternative would have been and why. I would have wanted him to actually engage with his ideas fully, thoroughly, and convincingly without just saying either you agree with me or you don't. That's not how we create a more thoughtful environment and space for survivors and their testimonies. I know that this could have been seen as a content creator just setting a boundary, but demanding agreement on something that most of us still don't even have a crystal clear image of without watching hours and hours of content is ridiculous. Intentionally locking oneself inside of an echo chamber is how growth is prevented. Nick probably would not have known that his method of covering the SuperMega drama left more to be desired if he had been encased in an echo chamber. Overall, this video from Nick to me was unnecessary because there is not one moment I can point to in it and say, I believe that is sincere regret and remorse. I think he's tired. I think that he has been worn down a bit by the internet, but I don't think that he truly believes that the controversy that he calls as an offshoot to Lex's testimony and the SuperMega controversy in general is that big of a deal. But wait, there's more, because of course there is. I was finishing editing this video when, surprise, surprise, Nick posted another follow-up to the situation as a part of an unrelated video on Mr. Beast. In 4 minutes or less, Nick addresses his more developed feelings on his coverage of Lex and SuperMega. He has now come to the conclusion that he should not have made these videos due to his proximity to Lex. And as I stated in my original analysis, this is something I firmly agree with.
I want to address this issue and talk about how I inappropriately handled reporting on a story that I should not have reported on. I'm realizing pretty late that I was too close to the story, and regardless on my personal feelings for the situation, it was irresponsible for me to involve myself and my platform into a conflict that really had nothing to do with me.
Nick showing his friend Lex unwavering support and validation regarding her allegation towards Dawn and the deterioration of her friendship with SuperMega was never the issue I cared about. Most survivors would kill to have a friend believe them outright. That is not as common of a trait as many people would like to believe. However, there is a difference in believing Lex, supporting Lex, and condemning people who were not even the ones accused of sexually assaulting her. Nick, with his expansive public platform, did not understand this. Or at least so he says.
And through thinking about this situation, I realized that there is so much that I could have done better. I should not be involved or be a part of this story, and I should not have agreed to cover it when Ethan and Lex approached me with the idea. And now I do still want to say that even with them asking me, I don't think they had intentions to lie or to put my career in a bad spot. I was still irresponsible by accepting it. There are ways to support a victim story as a friend, and this was just not the right way to do it.
I'm sorry. I have a hard time believing he just didn't consider this at all, considering he has covered his friends' testimonies before, a la Sabrina and Gus Johnson. Nick did not only do what he thought was right by way of Lex, but he also did what he thought he could get away with. He relied on his audience's empathy and sympathy towards survivors and the vitriol some people feel towards anyone who disbelieves them. But what makes the situation different from the Sabrina Gus controversy is that Gus Johnson was actually the person accused of victimizing Sabrina. SuperMega was, in my opinion, unempathetic and callous towards Lex. They made her feel unseen and uncared for, and that is something that both Matt and Ryan have acknowledged. That makes them bad friends. That means that they owe Lex an apology. That does not, however, make them horrible people who need to be constantly aligned with an accused sexual assaulter. In this little update that I believe was made specifically for his audience rather than his critiquers, Nick officially distanced himself from the controversy entirely for the sake of his platform and credibility.
I want to be responsible with my platform regardless of how I feel about the opposing party, and I let down my audience by doing that. I am sorry for how I handled this. I hope that you trust me to grow. I tend to get defensive when it comes to the way that victims are treated online and how they've been treated in the past, and I don't think it's fair for me to back off of a belief I have when I know that a victim is not able to do that, that they are inherently attached to what has happened to them. Regardless of that, I let that get in the way, and whatever happens with this situation moving forward, I am not a part of it. I do not associate myself with anyone involved, and by no means does that mean that I'm fully discrediting Lex's story. By no means does that mean I'm fully siding with SuperMega. I'm truly trying to do what is right for my platform. I don't want my career to be defined by situations like this, and this is not at all the kind of content I want to create. This is not the kind of situation that I ever want to even be a part of in the future.
And I just, okay. Whether he meant to do this or not, it comes off like he no longer supports victims, at least not at the expense of his reputation. And not even his reputation with his audience or his side of YouTube commentary, but his reputation as it stands with a much harsher, much less sympathetic side of YouTube. Because that's the majority of where this criticism is coming from. And there's two sides to this, because I've never subscribed to the idea that creators, influencers, celebrities, or anyone should feel pressure to discuss events or topics that they are not comfortable with or not informed enough about. People pushing that idea is why we see so much performativity. On the other hand, Nick is one of the only commentaries in that particular sphere who has a track record of always trying to take up for survivors, for better or for worse. Instead of just washing his hands of these kind of topics in general, I would have liked for him to strive to understand how he can do better, how he can engage with people whose gut reaction is to disbelieve survivors' testimonies. I thought he wanted to be a part of the change around this particular culture online and in life. But I guess that was just my mistake for assuming a commentator whose mission has always been to grow his platform as swiftly and as effectively as possible would be willing and able to bear the brunt of the horrible comments people tend to direct towards the survivors. I understand not wanting to put in the effort required to discuss these types of complex issues from a nuanced perspective that supports the survivor and maintains your integrity. But damn, I didn't expect for him to just walk away from this charge in general. It's one thing to pivot your platform into just doing more comedic content, just doing light and airy dramas, but it's another to put it in the way that he did in this little update. But I am interested to see what you guys think, particularly if you're fans of Nick. You guys know his content better than I do, so what do you guys think? How are you reading his video? Do you think that it's genuine? Am I being too critical here? But I think that's all I have for you guys today. Pretty quick video. I know that Lex may have some kind of follow-up to this controversy. Not sure if I'm gonna cover that. It kind of depends on what she says and if I feel like I actually have something more to add. But until then, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel because I have more content coming out soon. Happy belated Halloween, and I'll catch you next time.